The seventh day was the final day on my hike. This was my epic fail. Yesterday I physically collapsed. I fell to the ground with my heavy bag and lay there for about 2 hours, unable to get up or even move. It was the body's last signal that the hike had to end. The feelings were of course indescribable, especially considering all the time and money invested in this effort. I pushed myself to the limits and now I paid for it. I left my big backpack at the hotel in Ochagavia so it could be sent to Latvia by a DHL post. Due to my back injury, I was unable to lift it, not even talking about to carry it. So I packed some of my most necessary belongings into an ultralight bag and went from Ochagavia to Pamplona by a local bus. In a way, I was even lucky, because this bus only ran once a week. And it just so happened that it was the very next day after my injury. Otherwise, I would have to hitchhike, because a taxi from Ochagavia to Pamplona cost around 200 euros. Pamplona was the largest city in the region, and from there it was possible to get to the major airports in Spain. Already the view from the window of the bus entering Pamplona reminded me why I like mountains rather than the so-called civilization. In Pamplona I stayed at the hotel because I needed time to relax and good internet to book a ticket for the way home. On the sunny morning of the next day, I went to the train to Barcelona. There I stayed for a couple more days, enjoying the city and its autumn festivals. I even drove up to Montserrat Abbey in the mountains near Barcelona. From Barcelona, as one of Spain's largest airports, it was a lot easier to return home. I spent the next few months walking to the doctor and treating my injured back. It was clear that there would be no return to the trails so quickly. It wasn't until several months later that I went on local hikes again. As much as I had tried to prepare for the GR11 trail in the fall of 2023, I must admit that mistakes were made in the preparation process. Errors and conclusions. Talking about the conclusions, it should also be taken into account that the hike took place in the off-season, and the mistakes made will hardly be relevant when walking the GR11 trail during the summer. But anyway. Backpack construction. The biggest mistake was chosen backpack. To save weight, I chose an Exped Lightning 60 backpack for the hike. The main argument in favor of this backpack was its weight, 1180 grams, at a volume of 60 liters. Also, its recommended load was up to 19 kilos, in some sources even up to 24 kilos, which was well ahead of similar options in terms of price. Although I admit that the bag was overloaded, the shoulder braces were too narrow anyway, because the part of the waist that takes on most the load of the bag simply did not cope with its task. As a result, the braces of the bag began to push inside the shoulders. In addition, the piece of aluminium in the center of the bag, which serves as a frame, does not fully work as a full frame when some extra belongings are hung on the outside of the bag. As a result, instability occurs and back problems are just around the corner. Backpack capacity. Considering that it took me about a year to plan and order equipment from different regions of the world, I put together the bag shortly before the trip. As a result, I realized that the chosen bag capacity of 60 liters was too small to put all the necessary equipment in it, despite the fact that it was already compressed in compression bags to save space. There was no time or money left to order another bag. As a result, I used Osprey straitjacket bags, where I put the equipment that did not fit in the backpack and tied it to the top of the bag with expert ties. The additional bags on the sides of the backpack created instability and ultimately were one of the factors that led to a back injury and the sad end of the entire hike. So, 60 liters was not enough. A backpack with a volume of at least 85 liters was really needed. Too much stuff. I thought carefully and changed the planned contents of the bag many times. However, it must be said that some of the things I brought with me could have been left out. For example, about 400 grams could have been saved on a change of clothes and various small items that were more intended for use in hotels, cities, camping. Limited daylight hours. In autumn, the sun rises later and sets earlier. The daylight hours that can actually be used for hiking are much more limited than in summertime. Thus, purely physically, the daylight hours of the day are not enough to cover a long distance. Cooking, eating, preparing for the night and packing in the morning, as well as rest, breaks, take up valuable time. What is left is often not enough to realize the planned daily distance. Overly optimistic forecasts about the distance that can be done. It is understandable that in Latvia walking 50 kilometers a day with 10 to 12 kilo backpack twice a week did not cause me any problems. However, I did such distances in Latvia in the summertime and over relatively flat terrain. It would not be right to compare the small hills of the Gauja National Park even with the low mountains of the Basque Country and Navarre, not even speaking about the Pyrenees. Also, in autumn and the planned winter conditions, the hike would require much more time and energy. In preparation for the hike, I also trained in Latvia in the winter, wading through the snow with a 25 kilo backpack for 20 to 25 kilometers a day, which usually took 6 to 7 hours. However, over a long period of time, the body is exhausted by such a load. Mistakes are made, one careless step, and injuries imminent. Thus the planned 30 km in a day in Spain did not go as expected. I had to rush and take a lot of risks. In reality, 20 kilometers would be more realistic distance, but I didn't have that much time and had to hurry. Accommodation, shops, cafes. After the end of the season, many accommodations are closed and await visitors for the winter season or even next summer. The same goes for the shops and cafes. Due to the lack of customers, repeatedly encountered closed doors, which caused confusion because according to the information available on the internet, they should have been open. Also, the remaining accommodations in the region pump up prices due to the lack of competition, and the tourist in a desperate situation has nowhere to go. And where would we be without such a concept as a siesta, a Spanish rest time, when the shop is simply closed in the middle of the day and the shopkeepers officially go to take a nap. In this situation, you have to choose: wait for the shop to open or use the much needed daylight hours to move on. However, it should be noted that in a situation where the planned next shop is 4 hiking days away and it may also be closed, the right decision is very important. Some information I got from this regard closed Facebook groups where trail walkers exchanged information about closed accommodations, shops and campsites. However, after the end of the season, the number of walkers who walk even part of the trail also decreases rapidly, and the objective situation is still unclear. Weather conditions. The weather in the Pyrenees is relatively good in the summer. Autumn storms, extensive rains and cold nights reduce the body's performance. The body spends much more energy just to warm up and not freeze at night in the mountains. Trail signs and markings. There are too few of them, which results in getting lost. Sometimes this can also happen as a result of fog and bad weather. Also, the trails trodden by many herds in the region can be very misleading and lead in the wrong direction. The other extreme is that there are too many markings, which results in choosing the wrong version of the trail and losing both time and energy. Internet coverage and GPS. In my country, we're used to the fact that telephone communications and the internet are in every smallest village or deepest forest. Unfortunately, in the Pyrenees, internet coverage is very poor. Also, GPS works not very well. It's possible to use offline maps, but opinions tend to differ on this. Of course, I do not intend to use the phone to spend hours in social networks, but elementary things, weather forecasts, continuing the trail in case of getting lost, booking accommodation without the internet cause serious problems. Therefore, it's recommended to take with you one of the books about the trail or simple accurate maps. Language barrier. I must admit that the language barrier in Spain is a problem. If you don't know Spanish, then English alone will definitely not be enough. English is only understood in big cities. The trail, however, goes through villages. Several times I came across the opportunity to book some local accommodation where you have to call and agree on possibility of spending the night in local village. Unfortunately, there was no English speaker on the other end of the phone line. From this we can conclude that it is definitely easier for Spanish speakers, and of course local Spaniards, to plan and organize accommodation, reservations and other important organizational issues. Despite the setbacks, I still wanted to continue the trail next year. And when I watched how the paraglider took off from Montserrat Mountain to go against the Catalan winds, I thought to myself, well, hobbies are different, but if something gets mixed up with this person, he will probably not be able to continue his hobby. In turn, I just need to change my approach, prepare better, and take into account my own and other hikers' experiences. And next time, I will definitely succeed.